Wow.
Okay.
We draft. This is the kind of crazy stuff we do. Let me move this out of the way. No, I actually got to press record on this a little bit because watching us watch ourselves is funny.
It's hilarious.
What
Um,
the hell are we doing?
we're
Mm.
just vibing. We're vibing because it's just feels good. This is a wonderful Jupiter day. We are feeling abundant. We are just feeling the vibe and just flowing,
Yeah,
flowing as we do.
feeling the vibes totally. Okay,
Like
one side because it's in my way.
I'm smelling spring air approaching us.
It's the most wonderful time.
It's very Christmassy.
Yeah. True. But yeah, sometimes you just get that inspiration to sing, to make noise, to celebrate, to just
Yep.
feel the vibes of whatever season it is, whenever, whatever time, I don't know.
Yeah,
It feels
exactly.
feels good. I mean, London right now, the signs of spring are here. So the sun has come out for a few days, no warmth, or minimal warmth, I should say, barely warm. But
Yeah.
it's more about the brightness.
Yeah, I've seen people online, like I've seen people on threads talking about how London is getting bright.
Yeah, it's like it's noticeably bright because let's take it back maybe a month or so, like or even like maybe a month and a half, 2 months ago, by 3:30, something to 4, it was dark outside.
Oh, I
Because
mean,
winter
really.
time, like dark outside. But
Yeah,
it's like, what time is it now? I'm sure it's like 5 o'clock, pretty much, 5
yeah,
p.m. And as you can see,
all right. Has the
so
clocks gone?
last Sunday in March,
Okay, okay, okay.
watch the clocks go forward, and
Yeah,
then it will be brighter for significantly.
yeah, yeah. That's like over here in Charleston, South Carolina. That is where I reside. Is I think it's like like a week difference
Yeah, there's
between
usually a
when.
week difference. So we usually go first, and then like a week later, you
Yeah,
guys your clocks. So
I saw. I'm gonna check because I saw someone talking about daylight savings like next week around the 10th. So I'm just going to check and see. I don't know if it's around this time of year, the gap is a bit bigger. Or like
um,
if it shifts,
yeah,
like we go first now and then in the autumn,
yeah.
like go first. I can't
The
remember
amazing
what
thing
I'm.
about Jamaica is that the clocks don't move. It is the time that it is. There
Yeah,
is no
that's helpful.
back and forth. But I feel like they couldn't even if they wanted to, they couldn't implement it. It's such a rural island.
Yeah, everyone. Yeah.
Who in the hilltops is going to be concerned about daylight savings
No.
and turning their clocks
I feel
back?
like they probably aren't concerned about time anyway.
Everyone's operating on a different system. I think that's a good conversation to dive into actually, because like we get so preoccupied
Yeah,
in life about doing things at particular times of the year,
yeah,
phases in our life. Like we're taught to look at things in that way, like monitoring
yeah,
time, where like there's so much freedom when you release yourself from those shackles. Like
yeah,
when you were younger, maybe having an expectation that you would be in a relationship by a certain time, or by a certain age, or
yeah,
have children by a certain age, or have this job by this and da, 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 da. And it's like you start to realize like actually none of that ish matters.
yeah.
Like,
It's literally made up systems that you don't have to opt into.
yes, yeah,
Like it's
learning
a choice.
freedom is powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like, yeah, I feel like I mean, that's a huge part of what we are about as a whole.
Mhm.
But I feel like more and more people are awakening to the fact that, oh, like this is actually a choice. Like, why am I doing this?
Yeah,
because for so long people just on autopilot, just like, yeah, this is what we do, and it's like, no, you don't have to. And that's the case with so many different things.
Yeah. It's important, it's freeing, it's powerful. And I think that's why so many people are walking around like feeling depressed because they feel like they haven't achieved. And it's
Yeah.
just logical like
Because
warfare.
what even is achieved? Achieved what?
By a certain date, they feel like I'm not where I should be, but who created the should and why is that like that should not for you.
Yeah,
Would serve you. I
yeah,
definitely was or fell victim to that in my 20s, like
yeah,
thinking I had to do certain things or I wasn't on time for certain things.
yeah,
Yeah, life taught me a lot and realized that that's all bull.
yeah,
It really is.
yeah,
It really is. Like you show up for yourself as you are and do the things that you feel called to and aligned to, ignoring time.
yeah,
Like it really is like there's so much power and freedom in that. And of course, there's certain things that you like. Time is helpful. We're not going to
yeah,
say that time isn't helpful at all. But it's about how we use these things. We opt into these systems. It's really
yeah,
important you have a certain element of power and uh, the ability to control certain things, how much you
yeah,
opt into using this, or how much does this benefit you for your purpose. So if you've
yeah,
got something that you want to achieve within a certain time frame, just being very aware that that's self-imposed and that
yeah,
you have to shift that if you want to. But the problem is that most people don't recognize that they have the power to shift certain things. So they end
mm,
up feeling like they're behind in terms of time frames with certain things. And it's like, okay, but you set that condition.
right. You know,
Mm.
I think it's really helpful as well. Like when you have awoken to the fact that this is all a choice, like starting to surround yourself with people who are kind of operating in that way too, because we talk about this a lot. Your environment can be a real hindrance to, and you're creating it, which means you can create a new situation for yourself, but it can be a hindrance when you are now attempting to operate differently, but you're still around people who are perpetuating
Yeah.
this way of being that you don't want to be a part of, kind of thing. And so it's like, yeah, find some new people at her Emerald Club.
Yeah, so much. So it's important, like you said, to really surround yourself with people that align with that way of thinking and operating, otherwise you find yourself being pulled back into looking at things on an unconscious and subconscious level, like looking at things through a particular time frame. You
Yeah,
know, you're around somebody who, let's say, is completely opted into looking at time in that type of way, a way that doesn't align with you, right? Let's
yeah,
say they're doing a 9 to 5, maybe they've got kids that are attending school, maybe they've got certain things that they feel that they have to adhere to in terms of like time frames,
yeah,
processes for their life. And you're somebody who's a bit more free flowing. When you're in that environment, it affects you because now you're because we've been conditioned to look at time in that way from when we were young,
yeah,
you're having to consciously rewire like do some rewiring of that program. But
yeah,
if around somebody or people that perpetuate that program, it becomes very easy to fall back into that way of operating. So you've got to
yeah,
just, it might not be an all or nothing thing. It might be really understanding that you've got to spend more time doing things solo or around people that look at things in a similar way to you. And it's not about it being positive, negative, good or bad. It's just deciding
yeah.
yourself what works. Operating into looking at time or experiencing time in that sort of linear fashion is helpful in some instances, but for many of us at times it's unhelpful. It causes us to feel
Yeah,
like what we needed to do or we haven't achieved certain things by a certain age, which is all nonsense.
it's nonsense. And it's like even what you just said just then about spending time solo, that's often like the necessary like there's a time frame where you just need to be by yourself. And I think if you're not used to or comfortable being alone and you have to be around people, that's already something that needs to be addressed. Because sometimes it is about just being in your own energy so that you can work to kind of rewire these things. And then when you do, start to interact with other people, it's from a place where you've grounded yourself in your new ideals and beliefs and thought systems and ways of operating. And so you can combat certain things a bit more consciously
Yeah.
because it's a battle. Like I said, you can, make a decision to, okay, I'm gonna start operating differently, but then you've gone right back into the environment that you were in the day before, and it's just perpetuating your old systems. And it's like, it's a fight.
Make
It's a
life
fight.
easier for yourself by placing yourself in spaces, in environments that support the direction in which you're headed and like
Yeah.
want for your life experience. Like, does this serve the way that I want to experience time? Yes or no?
That
If it,
I like that. Does this serve the way that I want to experience time?
yeah,
That's
like
a powerful question.
if it's not, take yourself out of that environment, even if it's a temporary measure until you're able to do something more permanent. Because of course, there's conditions. Maybe you're living with somebody, or it's not as simple as I'm just going to leave the house right this very minute and never return. No, but does it mean that
Yeah.
okay, maybe you don't opt into certain conversations about doing things by a certain date and a certain deadline and a certain time. Maybe it's saying, okay, like we said, spending more time by ourselves and really processing like what our vision is for our life and setting up our own time frames of what that looks like. And that's not
Yeah.
necessarily in terms of like calendar time frames. That might be okay. I think this is another great aspect that we of us that we really play into, which is looking at things in a more cyclical way,
Mm.
looking at
Yeah.
things in terms of cycles, right? Understanding that as a woman, we have cycles and we're cyclical by
Yes.
nature. So at certain times of the month, we may have more energy, or we may be more inclined to rest, and maybe the types of foods that we want. Like we're very in tune with ourselves as divine feminine beings. So planning things according to that is another way of looking at time,
Mm.
right? Looking at the lunar cycle, which is often in line and in sync with just what we just described about our
Yeah.
own cycles. Looking at things in terms of, okay, maybe some of us do have a 5 year plan or whatever it is, but within that 5 year plan, when we dial it back as women, what does that look like in terms of achievement? Is it that
Yeah.
instead of us saying, okay, every single month we must do A, B, and C, maybe we look at things on a more quarterly basis, or we look at things
Mm.
in terms of
Yeah.
um, it's like seasonal, spring energy, summer energy, winter
I
energy,
love that.
the
I love doing that.
solstices and the equinoxes. Like there's so many ways that we can be playful with the idea of time,
Yeah.
that most of us don't even realize. And so, yeah, it's like having conversations like this reminds me to really keep doing that, like bring that to the forefront, because there are things that I want to achieve. Um, and I use that word when I say achieve, I literally just mean like I want to get done, I want to experience. It's not
Mm.
rigidity. Is that the word?
Yeah.
Rigidity?
Judicially.
That some may
Yes.
have that in terms of success and achievement. I don't
Yeah.
even really use the word success. It's a weird one for me. It's like do
Yeah,
what's
because it's so relative.
yeah, it's like alignment. What do I feel divinely guided towards, and what do I feel aligned with? That's how I tend to look at things, how we both tend to look at things.
Yeah.
There's so many ways in which you can be playful with time. And the most powerful way, in my opinion, is like just being present, which
Yeah.
actually ignores all the conditions that we put in place about what we have to achieve by a certain date and a certain time. It's like actually being present and committing to being the most authentic, true self in each and every moment. That
Yeah.
leads in the direction of like optimum wellness and vitality overall. And I'll be led and guided towards the things that really give me fulfillment and
Yeah.
create like it all comes together when you come back to self and presence. So I
Yeah.
hope.
That makes sense. And speaking on presence, when you kind of commit to presence and commit to living life in a really, really present way, it often looks like not knowing the thousands of steps ahead of
Mm,
you. You know, we're conditioned to have plans and have a plan and be able to essentially predict what's going to happen in the future. When you make this step, this is what's going to happen. And it's like that's a lot of the time what causes turmoil within us because we're trying to stick to something that is not necessarily the most highest and abundant path for us. And
mhm.
so, because we've created this plan in our minds, generated it from our minds, and we may be feeling guided away from that, it ends up being this battle against your mind and like, oh, well, this is what I said I was going to do, but just let the mind stuff go.
100%. This is why I think we talked about this maybe in a different episode, but using the word devotion versus like discipline.
Mm,
Discipline for me has that rigidity, that energy of like, I said I was going to do it, I must do it because I said I was going to do it and I want to
yeah,
achieve the goal, right? But when I think about being devoted to the bigger picture or whatever my goal is, the I can be more fluid with how I
yeah,
get there, right?
such different energy.
Completely different energy. So I don't feel like, okay, I said I was gonna every Wednesday, I'm gonna go to the gym and I'm gonna do da, 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 da. It's like actually going back to what we discussed about as us as divine feminine beings and us being cyclical by nature, when you understand that at our very essence flows each month, it shifts and it changes, honoring how I show up for myself, like
Mm,
at each phase, during each
yeah,
phase. So being devoted to my overall goal, which is maybe wellness, it could be whatever it is for you. It might be weight loss, it might whatever it is. Understanding that you don't have to be rigid with it. You can be devoted to your goal, and then you
yeah,
can be good and playful, using time to your advantage
yeah,
to achieve your outcome. But we're not taught
yeah,
to look at things in that way. We're actually taught to think that doing that is the opposite of discipline. When
yeah,
actually, women, it's honoring yourself. You realize that actually you're going to stop saying to yourself, why am I feeling so lazy? Why am I feeling I should be feeling like this, or I should be going to the gym, but I just want to crash out and I just want to relax and I can't be bothered. Yeah, because you have actually hormones that are making your body want to wind down and chill at this present moment. And it's not in your mind. You're not just being lazy. You're not saying, I can't
yeah,
be bothered for no reason. You have physiological changes happening in your body, hormonal shifts. Your endocrine system is doing stuff because you are a woman. And it's saying, okay,
yeah,
this is the time that I'm going to ask you to chill. Now, you can either work with me or work against me. And working against yourself isn't doesn't make you successful because you
yeah,
worked against yourself. You're going to feel the impact of that on a mental level, but in long term it's
yeah.
just mental turmoil because you're like, oh, I forced myself to do it, I did it, okay, I feel like I've accomplished it, but really your body's like, babe, you should have just chilled.
And it's like it begs the question like, does it make sense? Because often we'll create these plans or structures for ourselves, especially when we're trying to reach a goal, whether it's a health goal or whatever, and we make these structured plans for ourselves saying like, okay, Tuesday, Wednesdays and Thursdays every week I'm going to do this specific exercise, for example. You're not designed to do the same thing, especially on a week to week basis when you, as a woman, your energy levels fluctuate heavily throughout the month. So, what you're able to accomplish in that first week, for example, literally physically, is not necessarily going to be what you're able to accomplish in the fourth week.
Yeah.
And so, when your mind isn't kind of set up that way, you get to that fourth week and you feel like, oh, like it's a struggle. Like what, like you said, like why am I feeling so lazy? Why am I slacking? And it's like changing the conversation around that because it's like,
Mhm.
how are we structuring our goals in the first place? Because you end up feeling a way about yourself and feeling this guilt really unnecessarily. And it's that guilt ends up being more harmful than you not actually doing the thing.
100%. Really, the amount of times historically that I have just gone round and round in circles, ruminating over certain things and feeling like, why haven't I done this? Or I should be da 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 da. And now, where I'm at in my life, I understand certain things. I still have moments where let's say, the anxiety flares up about my behavior patterns, but I now have the tools to check myself essentially and saying, give yourself some grace immediately. Take a moment, take a beat, calm
Yeah,
down, because it's really important that we do this. We honor ourselves day to day, week to week, cycle to cycle. But one of the reasons why we haven't done that is because we're living in such a um patriarchal setup in society that women don't
yeah,
even understand what they're opting into. So
mm,
especially if you're someone who works in, let's say, the corporate environment, right? You're working in the corporate world,
yeah,
you're taught to do things in a particular way. And it's like, this is the format that everybody's engaging in. This is the expectation, and it's the same every
yeah,
day. Work, you do X, Y, and Z. There's a certain level of expectation. Now, our male counterparts can absolutely do that. Why? Because they don't experience the same cycles that we do. So they have a more stable energy level week
yeah,
to month to month. There's a certain stability that they have that we don't. It's not a problem. It's an absolute wonderful blessing and experience. Why? Because we are the creators of life. There's a reason why we have these experiences because our body's
yeah,
going through them, and every month giving us an opportunity to bring forth life into this
yeah,
planet. That's
yeah,
not a small feat. So when you understand that, you start to realize, oh, the systems that um the working world or the corporate world for the most part are operating by don't actually serve many of us women. On
yeah,
top of, I want to go back to that in a second, but on top of that, I remember having a conversation with someone once that explained that there's a lot of women that don't realize that we're cyclical by nature because a lot of us are on hormonal contraceptives. And when you're on
mm,
contraceptives, a lot of the time it can mimic, especially for women who decide they don't really want to have, because if you take, let's say you're taking the 28-day pill, the pills that you take for the 21 days and then you take the 7-day break. A lot
yeah,
of pills, if you don't take that break, you can avoid having a period, right? Meaning that
mm,
you're keeping your hormone levels, synthetically, hormone levels at a certain place.
yeah.
And you're tricking your body. I say tricking because your body's far too intelligent. We don't give it as much credit
The
as
body knows.
he knows. But essentially you're suppressing your system in a way
Yeah,
that tricks you into thinking that you have a certain level of stability, right?
yeah.
Now we can go into the pros and cons of that on another conversation.
That's the whole entire conversation.
My conversation. But going back to the conversation I had with someone, they explained that they were a gym goer. And when they started to look into health and all kinds of things, and they decided that they were no longer going to take the pill. And what happened was that they suddenly started to experience the fluctuations in energy levels. Whereas before she was able to go to the gym and put, let's say, 100, 90 to 100% in every single week. Now it was like 90 to 100% week one, 80% week two, 70% week three, 20% week four type of
Right.
situation.
Yeah.
And it's like rewiring your mind and understanding that, or learning just what this vessel is.
Yeah, because it's like some people might hear that and think that's a hindrance. It's far from it. Like it's that the whole female body aspect of things. Like I said, it's a whole entire different conversation. But we are set up in this way for a reason, and it only feels like a hindrance when you're, like you said, within a society and within a system that is has everyone operating against it. But
Mhm.
there's always the option to work with your own cyclical nature and with your cycle, and the benefits are tremendous. And so that's why it's so important to have these, like, this is not just and I feel like people are understanding this a little bit more, but this is not just an extra curricular, like, alternative way of living, like, oh, like, people might label it as the spiritual women of this world, or the more mystical or hippie women of the world. Or that's not a conversation for a particular type of woman. It's not an extra added thing to think about later. Like, when you start designing your life based on your natural rhythms and based on your natural makeup, it is a whole new world that you can begin to create for yourself. And it only feels alternative when you're in a system and surrounded primarily by things, people, um, ways of operating, environments that go against it. When you're
Mhm.
surrounded by women who are operating in this way, and not necessarily in the exact same way as you, but in a way that is in alignment with them, it's a beautiful thing. Everybody's thriving.
Mm.
We're not all meant to be doing the same thing. I say this with so many different things. Like, we're not all meant to be operating the same way and following the same things. And it's such a beautiful thing when you can see individual women literally designing their lives according to them. Like,
Mm.
it's wonderful. It's not about being the same. It's
Yeah.
about there's a different kind of radiance that to a woman who has designed and customized her life according to her.
Mm.
That's great. It doesn't need to be the same as me. It doesn't need to be the same as anybody. But you can tell. You might not even know what that is, but there's an energy and a radiance to a woman who has designed their life according to them. It's
Yes.
so individual, so unique.
Mm.
Like, yeah.
Yeah. I love this, and I love having conversations like this because for many women, they're not even aware that this is a thing, like this is even possible. It's like it's not a conversation that so many women have been around or have had, and spaces like her Emerald Club provide the platform to do so, to interact and integrate this information, connect with women who have designed their lives in that way, desiring to design their lives in that way, want to learn more. Like, it's the space, it's where we can come together as a community and share knowledge and information and resources that are about strictly about the empowerment of us as individual divine feminine beings. Like,
Yeah.
this is to me like the basis of it. Like, if you
Yeah. 100%.
understand that you can design your life however you choose, like, you're starting from a very powerful platform.
100%. Like, this is not an alternative conversation.
Mhm.
This is foundational.
That's the word I'm looking, foundational. It's a foundational conversation. There's so many. I mean, I'm looking forward to like sharing so much knowledge and information on stuff that I've come to understand over the years, as well as connecting with other women who have knowledge and information in all kinds of areas. But this particular topic is like I'm passionate about because you what you were saying earlier about thriving, like thriving when you're a woman operating in sovereignty.
Yeah. Yes.
Like, yes, it's not necessarily all rainbows and cartwheels initially because you have to, there's a shift. You're shifting.
You're restructuring, reprogramming yourself.
There's a level of discomfort because you're going against what you've been taught and the programming that
Yeah.
you have. Understand that ultimately, you can only benefit from doing things that serve you,
Yeah.
that honor you, like
Yeah.
going a path that feels right and aligned and divinely guided. Like, as a woman, this feels good. This feels
Yeah.
right. Like, there's nothing better than that.
Yeah.
Nothing.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Mhm.
Wow.
Didn't know the
I
conversation
think this is,
right there.
yeah. This is great about these. It's like it's just free flowing and whatever comes to mind. That is always the case with us. We've gone through periods where we've tried to plan certain things, especially when it comes to sharing information. And sometimes you just gotta flow. You just gotta flow. Whatever needs to come out at that specific time is what needs to come out at that specific
And I
time.
love that about what we've been doing. It's just, yeah, whatever feels right in and the flow of the conversation. And we've
Yeah.
always got something to discuss and share and insights and yeah. So I'm loving these conversations that we're having. And yeah, get used to
Yeah.
seeing more.
Get used to seeing many, many more. If you have loved this conversation and you have loved other conversations that we have had, be sure to share it, like, subscribe. We don't be saying that at the end of our videos. We just be in the flow and then we're like, all right, see you
Yeah,
later, guys.
yeah, no, please.
Share it with someone who you feel like would benefit from this. Our app is launching in the spring, so we will be sharing more information on that. But definitely keep up with us on Threads. We are very active on Threads. It will be our links will be in the description, but we are at Her Emerald Club on Threads, at Her Emerald Club on Instagram. You can go to heremeraldclub.com to read a little bit more about what this app entails and what it's about, and also join the waitlist. But we'll have all our links down below and links to how you can just contact us directly and follow us directly on social media platforms. We have so much in store, and we are just in a phase where we are sharing ourselves with the world and with the community and with the women that we are aiming to help lift up and awaken to their own divinity and the fact that they can create whatever it is that they want to create out of their lives. Um, yeah.
Love it. Leave it there. Yes, well, I'm happy to leave that there and looking
Yep.
forward to the conversation.
Yep. Absolutely, darling.